What do game keycards, digital download codes, and cheaper digital games have in common? They are all strategies that Nintendo are using to move you to an all-digital ecosystem. I'll explain. Let's get after it. With the announcement of the Nintendo Switch 2 came the reveal of a lot of games, and everyone has been talking about the prices, me included. In doing so, we may have missed Nintendo's very real and large shift to a digital-first focus. This comes in three significant ways. First, the game keycard. And for those that don't know, this looks exactly like any other physical Switch 2 title, but with one big difference. The game data is not actually on the physical card itself. Instead, it only features a code that allows you to download a digital version from the eShop. You are then required to put in the game keycard every time you want to play that digital game. It effectively functions the exact same way as a physical game card that you're used to. And a big portion of the third-party lineup appears to be using these game keycards, and some are even using a regular old download code in the box. These two types of digital games in a physical package are clearly marked on the front of the box. But this hasn't stopped people from expressing their disappointment and fury at Nintendo. As for why developers are making the choice to do this, a recent leak has suggested that Nintendo have given them an option, either a game keycard or a 64GB physical card as delivery options, with no in-between sizes. This means the large 64GB game card will come at more of an expense to the developer, cutting into profit margins. And if you're a developer with a 3 or 4GB size game, it hardly seems worth the cost to fork out all that money for 64GB, most of which you won't even use. And cost is a big factor here. As I've already mentioned, the conversation around Switch 2 has been dominated by the price. However, Nintendo are the first to officially pull the trigger on cheaper digital games than physical, with both Mario Kart World and Donkey Kong Bonanza being advertised with cheaper digital prices if purchased from the eShop. And this is the second way in which Nintendo are pushing a digital-first approach, by incentivizing the purchase of digital sales through a cheaper price tag. By incentivizing digital purchases and making much of Switch 2's physical library a glorified download code, it starts to bring into question how much we really need a bunch of mostly useless plastic cases. Then there's Game Share, which allows Nintendo Switch 2 systems to share compatible games with other Switch 2 or original Switch users, both locally and online. This means then that theoretically you could play the new Mario Kart World without even owning it. You could just join in on your friend's copy. Now, this isn't a direct push towards a digital-first ecosystem, but it does sort of create a normality around not using a game card or having a tangible physical thing that tethers you to the game and experience. Of course, the big positive with physical game cards is that if my son wishes to play Donkey Kong Bonanza, I hand him my physical copy and off he goes. This was of course a huge limitation to digital games. Until now. That's where the third way that Nintendo are pushing digital comes in, virtual game cards. Virtual game cards allow you to send digital games to a friend or family member for them to play. Much like a physical game card, you can't then play that game if you've sent it to a friend or family member, unless they send it back to you. So this then alleviates one of the biggest issues with digital games. But it isn't perfect. There are limitations. For example, you can only send a virtual game card for up to 2 weeks at a time. So those are the main three ways that Nintendo are pushing a digital-first ecosystem. There are some smaller ways, such as the Switch 2 Mario Kart digital bundle being cheaper, and expanding the Switch 2's internal storage, as well as future-proofing its expandable storage via SD Express, and making those a focal point of the launch accessories. But why is digital first such a big issue, and what's gotten people so wound up? Well, game preservation is the key issue. When the Switch 2 eShop eventually closes, whether that be 10, 20, 50 or 100 years from now, it will eventually close, and access to titles could be limited or impossible. Cost is a big factor too, with physical games going on sale much more often, and games being able to be sold or traded once a player is finished with it. There is also the benefit of not necessarily having to be connected online to play a game, although this is becoming less likely due to day one patches and updates. Speaking of, when it comes to game preservation, so often now that the games we have on a physical medium, whether that be game disc or game card, oftentimes are not the actual game we play. With day one patches, further patches, content updates, DLCs, season passes, games are often very different just a few months after release. So that brings into question, at least for me, the legitimacy of the physical game argument. Because once a game receives an update or a patch, doesn't that game disc or game card then effectively work the exact same as a game keycard? Sure, there are some files and data on the physical object, but not all of it. And it's become a very different thing than when it first released. And to be honest, I also find myself wondering about the environmental and resource differences between power drain on a server that's got more users and the production, manufacturing, storage, and shipping of billions of plastic cases filled with plastic discs or plastic game cards. So the real issue then comes down to liking having a physical object and resale potential. Well, game keycards can be resold. They're not tied to an account, and even though the data isn't on there, every other function of it works the exact same way as a regular physical game card. But of course, that wouldn't help with an all-digital platform. So if they're not functionally any different, why do I also find myself not wanting to buy them? I guess I know it's not the actual game, so placing it on my shelf just seems weird, pointless even. And I find myself drawn to the idea of having that space and just buying digital. After all, PC gaming embraced the digital future a long time ago. Maybe it is time for console gaming to do the same. But to do that, we need improvements to console storefronts. I think Xbox and even PS5 have a lot of work to do. And the Nintendo eShop, even with its most recent update, is lagging far behind them. So what we need then is digital games to fall in price over time, the same way physical games do. We also need more frequent and generous sales than consoles have ever seen before, in particular Nintendo consoles, to make the idea of an all-digital future a reality. Let me know in the comments what you think. Please leave a like if you liked this video, and do subscribe for more Switch 2 content. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.